So now I'm going to implement the add method and also the equal and less than methods. Make a copy of this to time 3. So I already have my definition of the add method that we saw before. And a lot of times when you're passing in objects of a class, they can be quite large. Now in this case, it only consists of 2 integers, but it's good practice to pass in a constant reference to that object. And if this were a large object, passing by a reference would give us just the address of where that object resides in memory, and then constant would ensure that the add method cannot change it. And so effectively we get a more efficient version of call by value. And I'm going to do the same thing for the equal method, except this is going to return a bool. And then I also want to implement less than. And equal is not going to change either object. It's certainly not going to change the object it belongs to, so it should be a constant method, and so should less than. So let's look at the implementations of those methods. I'm just going to put them here. So I'm passing in a constant reference to a time object, and I want to add these 2 time objects together. So in code, the way this is going to look, let me set this up. So I've got time t1, and let's say it's 5 and 15. And then I have another object, time t2, that is 2 and 10. So when I add these 2 times together, I should get 725. And I can do that by writing t1 add and then passing in t2 as the parameter. So then when I print t1, I should see the changed, the time t2 added to t1, t2 will not change. So I'm passing t2 in here as the parameter. And you might be tempted to just say, well, hours is plus equals time dot hours. Time dot hours is how we refer to the hours private data member of this object. Because these are the same class, I can just refer to the private data member directly. Well, this is not going to work very well because you're going to get values that are out of range. And we've got to make sure that after we add, that we get a legitimate time. So the way we do that is we can add our minutes together. And if these roll over, if the minutes that we have now are greater than 59, that means that we need to make some adjustments. The first thing we need to do is we need to carry the overflow over into hours. So we're going to get an additional hour, and then we need to adjust minutes by subtracting them from 60. Okay. And we're going to do something similar for hours here. If hours overflows, then we're simply going to subtract hours from 24. Now, of course, I said this in the video lecture, if we were dealing with days here, then if we exceeded 24 hours, we might have to add another day, but we don't have to worry about it in this case. So let's run this program, make sure I don't have any syntax errors, and hopefully this is going to print. Whoops. There we go, and it should print 725. Okay. So let's implement the equal method. So first of all, how do we know if two time objects are equal? Well, their hours have to be equal and their times have to be equal. So we can write that by comparing this object's hours to the time object's hour, or the parameter times hours. And we have to make sure that the minutes are the same too. Now if this is true, we can return true. Otherwise, we can return false. So that's fine. And another way of implementing this is to simply get rid of these returns, and you'll notice that this Boolean expression is true when they're equal and it's false otherwise. So we can just use it. Now with less than, first thing we have to do is, we check the hours, and if the hours are, okay, so again, this object's hours are less than the hours of the parameter time. If that is true, then we can conclude that this object is less than the parameter that the person passed in, the programmer passed in. Now, if that's false, the hours could be equal. And if that's true, then the minutes have to be less than. So if the hours are equal and the minutes now become the deciding factor, and if that's true, then we can return true. So if neither if statement is true, it must mean that either the hours are greater or the minutes are greater, in which case we have to return false. So that's how we implement less than. So now if we go, we've already tested the add method, so let's take a look at this. So first of all, let's say if T1 is equal to T2. It's equal and then not equal. So this should print not equal. Whoops. Let's see what I did. So it's telling me that my prototype is not matching any of the methods. So let's go back and look at my syntax. So, oh, you know what I did? I forgot the constant keyword. So there you go. So this is the error message you get. All it tells you is it says that this prototype does not match, and you can see that I'm missing the constant. So I've got to go down here, add constant, and add constant. Let's try this again. Now it compiles. So going back and looking at main, I should see not equal. And that's what I see, not equal. So now let's make them equal. Now I should see equal. And I do. Now let's test less than. And in this case, I should see not less than. And that's what I see. Now let's make this less than on the hours. And I should see less than. And I do. I see less than. And now let's make it less than based on the minutes. And I should again see less than. And that's what I see. So this is just an example of how you can implement operations, less than, equal to, and then addition. And now in the next video lecture, we'll look at how to overload operators.